Good evening, listeners, and you're very welcome along to Across the Line here on Tip FM with myself, Paul Carroll, on this Friday, the 8th of May 2026, and all in association with the Premier Credit Union in Thurles. Over the course of the next hour, we're going to be looking ahead to the weekend's sporting action in Tipperary. Lots to get to. We're going to hear from Tipperary ladies football manager David Power. They are in a game against Waterford in the Munster Championship, the last game of the round robin, with the chance to reach a Munster final for the first time in 44 years. We'll hear from David later in the show. Geraldine Kinane will join us to talk about the Tipperary Under-23 camogie team, who have an All-Ireland semi-final. That is on Sunday at 2 o'clock in SETU in Waterford. We'll hear from Geraldine later on. Gary Culbert will be talking NT&DL soccer. A bit of controversy in the NT&DL in recent weeks about player eligibility, and it has resulted in a 2-horse title race becoming a 3-horse title race. So Gary Culbert is going to join us in studio to give us a rundown on what's happening there, and we'll round off the show with Barry Drake looking ahead to the weekend's greyhound racing action. But our main focus, and what we'll start with, is the game up in Markievicz Park on Sunday at 1:15, the round one of the Tailteann Cup. Tipperary taking on Sligo. Anthony Shelly and Michael Cook will be on commentary duty for Tip FM, and our coverage of that game will be with thanks to John Kennedy Motors, your main Toyota dealers in Clonmel. So I mentioned Anthony Shelly will be on co-commentary for the game up in Sligo against Sligo, and I'm delighted to say Anthony joins me on the line now. Anthony, you're very welcome back to the show.
How are you, Paul?
Sunday at 12:45 throw-in time up in Markievicz Park. A game you can hear live on Tip FM with thanks to John Kennedy Motors in Clonmel. Tipperary against Sligo. It's a kind of deja vu, Anthony. It's the third year in a row the sides have met in the Tailteann Cup. But before we talk about the match and the team and things like that, the Tailteann Cup itself is undergoing a different format this year than what we've seen in the last couple of years, similar to the Senior Football Championship.
Yeah, it's basically it's an open draw first round, and then the winners would play the winners in round two, and the losers play the losers in round two as well. And then round three will be basically the teams that have won of their first two games, whereas the team that wins two of their first two games will skip round three. So
yeah.
You'll get a third game in this if you can manage to win one of your first two games. Is probably the easiest way to
or you have 3 chances to win 2 games. So
exactly.
If you lose your first 2, you're gone.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that is the situation this year. I've mentioned Tip have played Sligo the last couple of years. 2024, 322 to 112 in Thurles. Sligo won that game by 16 points. Last year, just 5 points in the teams up in Tubbercurry, 215 to 210. I remember that game because we lost commentary connection about halfway through the second half of that game, and I know Philly Ryan, God rest him, was listening to the game back home because he had just had surgery, and I'd say he wasn't too happy with us here on Tip FM that day because we lost commentary for the second half. But teams certainly have history, but even looking back on those 2 games, Anthony, I look back at the starting lineups. 2024, Tip only have 4 starters from that game. That's down to start on Sunday, and from last year only 6. So it's kind of hard to take too much. And I think Sligo, you might have mentioned, are kind of something similar as well.
Yeah. Would you believe we're probably going into this game more experienced? If you go on Sligo's game against who did they lose to in the
Leitrim?
Return to Leitrim, we went into this game with more experience than Sligo, which is not something that we say. They're in a real rebuilding stage. They had a difficult enough league. They basically stayed up on the last game with the last kick of the ball. I think a point in the 77th minute of the game kept them in Division 3, but they're in a real rebuilding stage as well. So of the teams that played last year, Sligo will only have 5 stars, and as you said, Tip will have 6, but Tip will have 9. We've a very experienced bench named for Sunday. So it's that because of the change, the change in personnel on both sides is a really, really hard game to call. But I think this year, rather than the last 2 years, it becomes very much a 50-50 game. As I said, we have 6 lads that experienced this last year. I haven't seen the Sligo team for today, but going on their last game, they would only have 5 that featured in this game last year.
Yeah, and the Tip team that was named today just has one change from the one that started against Cork, with Killian Butler coming in for Owen Craddock, who's on the bench. But the bench is the strongest it's been all year. We've Stephen O'Brien back, who's missed a couple of games through injury. Likewise, Luke Boland is back on the bench, and Jimmy Feehan for the first time this year is involved in the matchday squad. And when we were doing the game against Waterford, Anthony, in the Munster quarter-final, and they walked across the field before the game, and you mentioned, God, wouldn't it be great to have those lads back out on the field? So it is great now to have those lads back out in the field.
Yeah, well, at least they're available to come in and give us a dig out if we need it. And it's brilliant, and it's just I don't see Mark Stokes' name there. So, but
Mark Stokes and Manus McFadden are both out through injury.
Yeah, I think we were talking there off air that there might have been a virus that went through the camp there in the last week or two, so maybe they got that or just not available for selection at the moment. But this is the strongest bench that we have, and it's funny that we've had all year. And it's funny when you look at the two teams, and when we're talking about us having 6 of the team available from last year, and Sligo have only 5. All the experienced players are from the midfield up on both sides. New goalkeepers, new backline in both sides. So it could actually be quite an exciting game because the two teams will be looking to try exploit the inexperience in the backline. But on that note, you would have to say that the way our backs performed against Cork the last day, you wouldn't think they were inexperienced. I thought they were absolutely outstanding. So if we can defend at the level that we defended that for 50 minutes the last day against Cork, this game is really there for us. But as I said, without having seen these new Sligo players, it's a really hard game to call.
Yeah, and they have some real top quality forwards that we certainly saw up in Tubbercurry last year as well, Sligo. But the Tailteann Cup, Anthony, for Tipperary has been really poor, to be honest. We've only kind of had a couple of wins in the 3 or 4 years that the Tailteann Cup has been there. So, God, it would be great if they could get a victory and go on a bit of a run, because we haven't had even a bit of a run in the Tailteann Cup really in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't think the format from the last couple of years was suited us, because last year you group of 4, I think we were in with 3 Division 3 sides, and something similar in 2024. We were always unlucky with the draw, but this is our this is the competition that we should be aiming for, and should be able to progress. Right, it might be a step too far for us to get to a final this year, but this competition was made for teams like Tip, and it's about time now with the open draw and everything like that we should be aiming to improve our results in it, because not only, Paul, over the last few years, and we go back a bit for the 3 years that's been involved, not only have we lost matches, we've taken some heavy beatings in them as well. So, as I said, it's meant for Division 3 and Division 4 teams. If we fancy ourselves, as I do, to be, becoming an established Division 3 team within the next year or two, I think, we would need to be getting to at least round 3, if not round 4 of the Tailteann Cup this year.
Yeah, it would be. It's certainly tangible progress that you could certainly build upon. So it is at 12:45, as we said, and it's a double header as well, because the under-20 footballers play Sligo in the B All-Ireland Championship semi-final. That's at 2:45 in Markievicz Park. So if you're heading up there on Sunday, you'll get a double header in. And also Tipperary played Longford on Saturday in the All-Ireland preliminary quarter-final of the 3rd tier of the minor championship. So some of the underage teams still out in action over the weekend. But Anthony, another game I just wanted to get your opinion on is the Munster senior football final, which is on down in Killarney on Sunday. Cork against Kerry. And there's a lot of kind of undertones of we could have an upset on the cards here in terms of Cork. Cork are going very well this year, and Kerry seem to be down a few bodies. So this is going to be maybe one of the most intriguing Munster finals going into it anyway of the last couple of years.
It would, and if you go like last year, Kerry were very lucky to come out on top in their meeting with Cork. So Cork would fancy their chances all right, but I mean, Kerry are All-Ireland champions down in Killarney. Their record is unbelievable. So I still fancy Kerry just about to have enough done. But like it is strange. Like the draw was made. The draw for the All-Ireland series was made before these games were played. It kind of, Kerry kind of looking for Donegal as well. Right?
You're kind of almost looking past the provincial final, aren't you?
I don't see, it wouldn't have been any harm to have the draw after the Munster final. I know Jack O'Connor and a few other managers have spoken about the timing of the draw, but I suppose it is where it is. But I do think it does take a little bit away from it, because like the talk all this week has been Kerry Donegal in the first round of the All-Ireland series rather than Kerry Cork in what should be an absolutely cracking game, because Cork, as we've seen the last time, when they get moving, they're a really, really good side.
And you mentioned the Kerry Donegal game. Even we're falling into the trap of looking past the provincial decider now and looking ahead to the All Ireland series. But that Kerry Donegal game in round one, a lot of kind of controversy during the week as well about where that game is going to be shown. It is clearly the biggest game in football at the minute, and it's going to be on GA Plus rather than RTE. GA Plus have the first pick of the first two games in the first couple of rounds of the football championship, so they've picked that. So it just doesn't feel right that the biggest game in Gaelic football of the weekend in a couple of weekends' time won't be on free-to-air television.
No, it doesn't. And like PA Plus is a great initiative, and it's great that we can see games that we probably wouldn't, because it's such a condensed season now. RTE can't show all games. You're going to have it to pay for a few. But in that particular, it's the first round. The biggest game of that weekend should be on free to air, I think. Anyway, that would be my opinion on it. And you could put some of the other games on GA Plus. But it is disappointing. But I suppose they are running a service that has to be paid for, and this will probably pay for their service for the year, because a lot of people will be paying their $12.99 or whatever it is to tune into that one.
Yeah, for sure. That's been a talking point in GA circles over the last few days. But Anthony, the big one for us here in Tipperary is Sunday at 12:45 up in Markievicz Park. You'll be on commentary duty alongside Michael Cook for that one. And we mentioned our commentary is with thanks to John Kennedy Motors, main Toyota dealers in Clonmel. Safe travels, Anthony, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
We're going to take a quick ad break. Stick around. David Power coming up after these. And you're very welcome back to part 2 of Across the Line here on Tip FM with myself, Paul Carroll, and this Friday, the 8th of May 2026. Now on Sunday, it is a massive game for the Tipperary senior ladies footballers. They take on Waterford in Dungarvan with a chance to reach the Munster final. To look ahead to that game, I'd like to say I'm joined on the line by Tipperary senior ladies football manager David Power. David, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
David, you have a big game on Sunday at the early time of 11:45 a.m. in Fraher Field against Waterford in the Munster Championship. It's a massive game because Tip have beaten Cork. We were beaten by Kerry last weekend, but it is a chance to reach a Munster final. So, massive game on Sunday, David.
Absolutely huge, Paul. It's been a really good Munster Championship so far for us. We had a great result down in Cork against Cork last Sunday against Kerry after a nervy first half, and I suppose that ultimately kind of was probably the main reason why we lost against Kerry. We had a great second half, and maybe really unlucky not to get a result. But for the girls to see that they can compete against the very, very best teams in Ireland, that's a huge statement. And look, we're going down to Fairfield against Waterford. Waterford are after winning from two. They're a very, very good team, and I think Munster ladies football in general is very, very, very strong. And look, we have a huge opportunity in getting to a Munster final. And there's great belief amongst the girls that we can go down to Fairfield and beat Waterford.
Yeah, and I've kind of spoken that word belief about the ladies footballers this year. Of course, they had a brilliant campaign last year, getting to an All-Ireland quarter-final. So I'd imagine coming in this year for you and your management team was about kind of reaffirming that belief within the players, because, in this Munster Championship, Tip are a Division 2 team. Cork are the Division 1 league champions this year. You beat them. Yeah. Kerry have been competing at the back end of All-Ireland Championships the last number of years, and Waterford are a very strong Division 1 team as well. So on paper you're up against it, but you clearly have that belief in the squad.
Yeah, look, I suppose over the last 6-8 weeks, look, we're after beating the Division 1 champions in Cork. We're after beating the Division 2 champions in Donegal. So we know that we can compete against any team on our day. And, I suppose, looking back at the league, so results could have went a bit differently on some games, and we could have been in the Division 2 League final, but it wasn't to be. But for us, really over the last 4 or 5 weeks, the development, the girls, the training has been outstanding, and I think that's beating Cork. I just felt as a group, there were just that one winning that big game against Cork, that they had that belief. And I think last weekend we were going into that Kerry game. So it was a lot different than other years in terms of you were going in maybe hoping to get a performance, but the girls were really, really believing that they could beat Kerry last Sunday. And I don't think, it's a long time since a Tip Ladies team had that real belief that they could beat Kerry. And again, that same belief is going to be there against Waterford. And like ultimately, Paul, if Tip can get to a Munster final, it'll be the first time in 44 years, which would be a huge achievement.
Yeah, it would be absolutely massive. Like you're on the brink of massive history there. So the way it's working out, you're playing Waterford on Sunday, as we said, 11:45. It probably sounds like an early start, but it's because it has to be on the same time as the Cork and Kerry game, which is on in Killarney before the Munster final. So that's at 11:45 as well. Yeah. So you're looking at a win for Tipperary would guarantee a place in the Munster final if Cork were to beat Kerry in the other game. But then if Kerry were to beat Cork, you'd have to beat Waterford by a better score difference than Kerry beat Cork. So it's going to be one of them situations where you're probably going to have to worry about what's on the field first and then look at the calculators and that if you're in a position.
Absolutely. Look, and I think I've said this to the girls on Wednesday night. Our focus and our only focus is beating Waterford, get that result. And then after that, I think for us to be guaranteed to be in the Munster final, if we beat Waterford by 7 points, that's guaranteed. But we're not focused on that. Our focus, get the 3 points against Waterford. And then whatever happen will happen then after that. Like, I'm sure Cork are going to be going down to Killarney. They're going to be hurting. They won't want to lose 3 games in a row in Munster either. So I can see that being a very, very competitive game as well. So, and also Cork, on the flip side, to still have an outside chance of qualifying for a Munster final, because if we lost against Waterford and they beat Kerry, it'll go on score difference. So like, you're actually going into this weekend, so all 4 teams have a huge chance of getting to a Munster final still. So look, but from a Tip point of view, our focus is going down to Dungarvan and getting a positive result, and then whatever happens in terms of the calculations and stuff. And even if the worst happens, that we do beat Waterford and we don't get into a Munster final, it'll give still huge confidence to the girls. It'd be a huge Munster championship, even though we don't get to a Munster final. But I fully believe if we do beat Waterford, I think we will get to the Munster final. I think things will hopefully work out.
Yeah, and of course the seedings for the All-Ireland Championship go after the final standings in the Munster Championship as well, so it's important in that sense as well. But David, you're a Kilsheelan native. Tip Waterford games, for particularly down south in the county, take on a life of their own when sides meet. So is that an element as well, as you always kind of head down to Fairfield?
Yeah, look, there's no point saying otherwise. They'd be a fierce rivalry between Tipperary and Waterford. And like over the last number of years, when you look at the results of Tip and Waterford, there's not much between the teams in terms of results. Like obviously you would have the Cumber Ranger girls, they'd be coming into Clonmel into school, and you'd have the Ballymacarbery girls coming into secondary school as well. And so like the South Tip girls and the Waterford girls would really know each other. So they'd be that rivalry there, which would be good and healthy, and there'd be huge respect there as well. So look, it kind of like it is a bit different to playing Cork and Kerry, but look at the end of the day, we're going down to Dungarvan, and which is not an easy place. Whether it's men's football or ladies football, it's never an easy place to get a result. But we know we're more than capable of getting a result, but we have to get that performance. And I think if we get that performance, we've got a huge opportunity getting that win and hopefully getting to a Munster final.
And finally, David, it's your first year in charge of the team. The new rules have come in ladies football now this year. How have you found that? You've been involved with club teams, ladies football, down through the years as well. But how has that kind of changed, even from a coaching element to the ladies game, now that the new rules have been implemented?
It's been really, really good. The tap and go is really, really good. I think the tackle is still a bit of an issue in the ladies game, in terms of depending on referees. Some referees will leave the physicality really go, and others will blow. So in terms of the consistency, the real definition of the tackle in the ladies, I still think there's work to be done on that.
Yeah.
But in general, the new rules has definitely speeded up the game. I think the girls are really enjoying playing the new rules. I suppose the 2-point arc is not really relevant in the ladies. There's been a couple of 2-pointers, but it's not a big thing compared to the men. But no, in general, I think the new rules was only a positive thing for ladies football, and it's definitely speeding up the game. And there's definitely more chances being created. Even though if you look at some our game score lines have been low, but the new rules is definitely enhancing the game of ladies football.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and it's still very much in its development as well, with the new rules coming in. So everyone, including players, referees, coaches, everyone is learning as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, David, we wish you the very best luck Sunday in Fairfield, 11:45 against Waterford. Wish you the very best luck, and thanks for joining us on the show.
And thanks very much, Paul.
And we're going to switch attention now to the world of camogie, because on Sunday at 2 p.m. in the SETU campus down in Waterford, the Tipperary Under-23 camogie team take on Cork in the All-Ireland Championship semi-final. So to look ahead to that game and to talk a bit more about camogie, I'd like to say joined on the line by Tipperary camogie hero Geraldine Kinane. Geraldine, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Before we get to the Under-23 All-Ireland semi-final, which is on this Sunday, we will just have a quick word on the Munster Senior Camogie final. That's been fixed now, Geraldine. So Tipperary against Waterford, and it's going to be on in Semple Stadium on Saturday the 16th, so Saturday week at 4:45, the match before the Tipperary versus Clare Senior Hurling Championship game. So it was kind of up in the air whether it was going to be before this game or whether it was going to be before, I believe, Waterford and Limerick in the Gaelic grounds. So a big thing for Tipperary now that it's on in Semple Stadium.
Yeah, it's a great boost for Tip Camogie to have it on in Semple Stadium, to be at home again and part of a double header with the hurlers. It's fantastic. And you know, it was always fixed for that weekend, so we weren't sure, as you said, it was going to be the following day in Limerick. So look, it's worked out very well for us, and again, obviously we'll be appealing for a big crowd to get in early for the Munster final. We had great success there a couple of years ago, beating Clare in the Munster final, so it'd be great to do the same again. But obviously facing a big task ahead with a very formidable Waterford side, but certainly something to look forward to next weekend.
Yeah, and Tip and Waterford have had some great battles down through the years in the senior grade in the last 3 or 4 years. It feels like they play each other quite a lot, and they're always tight, good games. But that's going to be an interesting one. So you've an 8 days notice there if you're just finding that out now. So get into Semple Stadium Saturday week early. 4:45 is the throw-in time for that one against Waterford. But this weekend, Sunday 2 o'clock in SETU in Waterford, Tipperary against Cork in the All-Ireland Under-23 Hurling Championship semi-final. Geraldine, it's just the second year of this Under-23 grade competition. How have you kind of found it, and what way do you think it's played out kind of in the first 2 years? Has it been a success in kind of its role in kind of taking over from that Premier Junior grade for the likes of Tipperary and Cork and the top teams in camogie?
Yeah, I suppose, look, it takes a bit of getting used to, and I suppose there's probably a lot of players maybe feel hard done by that, are over 23 and, maybe we're on the second teams and losing out now. But look, I think it's very good for development. I think it's very good for girls coming out of minor to have something to step up to as well. Look, there's, Brian Darcy's done a great job this year. He's a big panel and, working very hard and developing all the players. And, we see last year the likes of Geraldine Kinane was very good, and she's progressed now onto the senior team this year. So it certainly has worked in that regard. There's a lot of girls there, that were on good minor teams a couple of years ago, and definitely under 23 is going to bring them on. We reached the semi-final last year. We were beaten in the semi-final by Cork, and I think it was definitely a goal for this year to get back to the knockout stages, and they've done that again, and look up against Cork. So look, a huge task ahead. But look, this team have proven they beat Cork in the Munster final. They beat Galway, drew with Kilkenny this year. They've had some great results, great battles. Unfortunately, it suffered a heavy defeat to Cork last week, but I suppose you don't want to read too much into that. All 4 teams have qualified for the semi-finals. We knew there was a strong possibility we were going to be playing Cork again. Some players were rested, but I suppose we wouldn't have wanted to be beaten, we wouldn't have wanted to be beaten at all, but obviously beaten by so much. So look, it's going to be a huge turnaround, but to beat Cork this Sunday. But look, the girls know what's in front of them. They know what they have to do, and they know they'll have to obviously improve, 5 times over to beat Cork. But I think that's in them. I think their best game last year was probably against Cork in the semi-final, and looking not to win it. Probably one of their best games this year was against Cork in the Munster final. So look, they just need to get the best out of themselves again on Sunday, and hopefully they can get over the line.
Yeah, and just on that under 23 kind of grade as a whole as well, as you mentioned there, it's proven successful. What you mentioned, Geraldine Kinane kind of coming through the ranks there and now making her impact on the senior team, and that's important because you mentioned those good minor teams down through the years. And it's a step up from minor to senior. So to have that under 23 grade, it gives some of those players who maybe later developers in terms of getting up to the senior level, but have the potential to do that. It gives them a bit of a bridge for a couple of years to be able to develop at their own pace before kind of making that jump up to the senior level.
Yeah, look, and it's a very high standard, to be honest. You're playing all the best counties, I suppose, camogie counties in Ireland, in the likes of the Corks and Kilkennys and Galways, and you're more or less playing their second string teams as well. So look, it's a very good standard. It's a very high standard, and certainly it's developing players. And we have Kieran Boyle and Tipperary. He's overseeing the S&C for both squads, and a lot of work has been done with the S&C and developing the players as well. And obviously, they're getting good matches, good coaching. So look, it's so far so good, and I suppose you'd love to pick up a bit of silverware too if you could, and it was great to win the Munster final this year as well, and another chance now on Sunday to get back into another final as well. So look, you'd be happy with how it's going. There's an overlap with some players are involved in the senior panel and the under 23s as well, and that seems to be working well as well. So is
there any rules around that, Geraldine, in terms of if a player has played senior championship, are they still allowed to play under 23? Are they kept separate, or you can overlap?
No, you certainly can overlap. You definitely can overlap. I mean, with Tip, we're probably working away with 2 separate panels, but there are some players maybe that are outside of the top 26, maybe in the senior, that are coming back and playing under 23, or some players have dropped down from the senior to the under 23. But no, you can play both. It's not really being used in the same way as the hurling is being used, where you see, I suppose the dilemmas of playing Wednesday nights and again on Saturdays for Tip with the under 20s. It's not really been used with that way with Tip, and probably not really with any of the counties, but maybe that's just something that will change. Maybe I think it's just so used to having 2 separate panels with a junior and a senior, intermediate and senior, so maybe that will change in time. But at the moment it's kind of 2 separate panels and a few players overlapping, but it certainly is developing players too, and there's certainly, I'm sure James Heffernan's keeping an eye on the under 23s as well, looking at the senior panel in the future as well. Yeah,
it could be one of those things where one county might start playing their senior players that are under 23, and suddenly everyone else will start doing it to keep up. But as you mentioned, they met last week in the final game of the round robin, and that was a heavy win for Cork, as you mentioned, 219 to 7 points. But Tip beat Cork in the Munster final back in March, 112 to 13 points. So it could be, maybe you'd be hoping anyway, that last week was maybe just a foot off the gas kind of thing. A few players rested, as you said, and you'd be hoping it sets up for the perfect in the long grass kind of result this weekend. But it's Sunday at 2:00 in Waterford. Just your kind of final thoughts on it, Geraldine.
Yeah, look, I think a huge performance is needed from Tip. I hope they've drawn a line under the game last weekend. I'm sure they have, and know that that wasn't a reflection of what they are. But at the same time, I think they'll have learned a lot. I think Cork got on top of midfield the last weekend, and it was very hard to stop them. Obviously, there's some very good forwards running at you. So look, I think I think we obviously have to get off to a good start. We have to be, I suppose, tuned in mentally, ready for a huge battle. And look, this is one chance. You 60 minutes, try to get to an All-Ireland final. It's a huge prize on offer. And the girls have been playing well all year. Last weekend was their first defeat of the year. I just think that I think it's in them. I think there's a massive performance in them, and hopefully they can do that on Sunday. And I think it would be maybe hard for Cork after beating Tip so well. They have to try and, I suppose, focus and say, look, expect a better Tip team this year, this weekend. So hopefully that might work in our favour. But look, I suppose Tip are under no illusions of the task ahead. Cork have had a very good campaign, won all their games. They certainly improved since the Munster Championship. So it's a huge task ahead. But look, any day you go out and play Cork, it's obviously a huge task. But I think the girls have shown great character all year. They've pulled out some great results in tough matches, and no doubt they can do the same again on Sunday.
Yeah, and just the other semi-final is on Saturday at 3 o'clock in Birr. That's Galway against Kilkenny. But Tipperary take on Cork Sunday at 2 o'clock in the SCTU campus there in County Waterford. Geraldine, enjoy the game over the weekend, and thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, we're going to take a quick ad break here on Across the Line, but stick around. Very interesting NT&DL chat coming up, along with greyhound racing with Barry Drake, all coming up in just a few. And you're very welcome back to the third and final part of Across the Line here on Tip FM with myself, Paul Carroll, on this Friday, the 8th of May 2026. Now, it's been a very interesting couple of weeks in the world of the NT&DL Premier Division. The NT&DL Premier Division title race is coming right down to the wire, and what was expected to be a finale, a final day showdown between Shinrone and BT Harps for the title has suddenly become a 3-horse race with Moneygall also now in the mix in what has been a unique story. And to talk us through it, I'm joined in the studio by Gary Culbert. Gary writes the weekly NT&DL slot in the Nina Guardian, and you can read that there every week. Gary, thanks a million for coming into the studio. You're very welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, great to have you in. You had a story in the Guardian this week about, I suppose, a bit of controversy in the NT&DL Premier Division, but it's all based around the title race, and what was looking like a 2-horse title race between BT Harps and Shinrone has been thrown into a 3-horse race with Moneygall coming into the mix. Moneygall of all their games played, Shinrone and BT Harps play on the final game of the season. Shed a bit of light on what's going on for listeners who may not be aware.
So over the past 8 days, it has come to light that Ballinamackie fielded an ineligible player in a 4-all draw with Moneygall at the start of April. And that means now that Moneygall are going to get 2 extra points, which takes them to the top of the Premier Division League. They've all their games played. Everyone had thought that it was going to be BT Harps playing Shinrone in Shinrone on the final day, and that Shinrone would only need a draw to lift the title. But now the scenario is that Shinrone need to win, BT Harps need to win, and Moneygall could win the league with a draw. And if Harps were to win, they would have to play Moneygall now in a playoff.
So it's unbelievable. It's rare that you ever see a scenario like this, and because the controversy, the time this player in eligibility affair came to light, Moneygall were just about to play their final game, so they've played that final game. So instead of the usual thing you'd see on the final day if there was a 3-horse race, would be the games are being played at the same time. But now it's a situation where the Moneygall lads are probably going to have to go down to Shinrone and just watch this match as it's happening and hoping that it's going to be a draw. Very unusual set of circumstances.
It's absolutely bizarre, but it almost adds to the build-up of the game. Like the game itself between Shinrone and BT Harps, it's really a David versus Goliath battle. Like neither team, BT Harps nor Shinrone United, has ever won the Premier Division title in North Tipperary. And this is now the 3rd season in a row that the North Tipperary and District League Premier Division title race is going to go down to the final day. And an extra layer for this game is that both managers are stepping down from their roles after this game. So there's so many angles here, there's so much at stake. And you've also got Moneygall now as a 3rd player in this.
Yeah, and Moneygall and Shinrone just come up from the 1st division last year, so they've had a real quick rise to the top.
Yeah, like Moneygall and Shinrone, they both would have been happy with just holding their own in the division, but it's testament to, you've got 2 small villages there, and they're competing with a behemoth of soccer in Tipperary, BT Harps, and the facilities that BT Harps have, and the player pool. And you think about Shinrone, such a small area, and they're pulling players from Birr, from Roscrea, and they really are up against it now on the final day. Last season they brought Moneygall down to Shinrone on the final day in the First Division title race. They drew 0-0. They would have been able to do that had this player eligibility problem not come up. But now it's winner takes all on the final day. It's sensational stuff, really. People like to say things about the North Tipperary District League, that the quality isn't there or whatever. But in terms of entertainment value, drama, stories, local heroes, like the North Tipperary District League punches so much above its weight in all those areas.
Yeah, and the game itself between Shinrone and BT Harps, when has that been fixed for?
So that's not this Sunday coming, so the following Sunday.
So Sunday week.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something to really look forward to, and what will be a grandstand finish to the NT&DL Premier Division. We do have a busy weekend of soccer ahead. We have 3 Tipperary teams in action in the FAI Junior Cup. We'll just start with the TSDL teams on Saturday at 2 o'clock up in Dublin. Peak Villa are against Ronanstown. And then on Sunday at 3 o'clock in Cork, St Michael's are taking on Knocknaheeny. So the best of luck there to those. And then on Saturday at 3:30, BT Harps are taking on Pike Rovers inside in Limerick. So amidst all this controversy, BT Harps in the FAI Junior Cup 4th round, and a massive game for them tomorrow inside in Limerick.
It's a huge game, but disappointingly, BT Harps have been forced to play on a Saturday at 3:30. Originally, the fixture was fixed for Saturday at 6:30. Then it was found out in Pike that they had an event in their clubhouse at that time. So, with no consultation with BT Harps, they've been moved from a Saturday 6:30 to a Saturday 3:30. And that means that they're not going to be able to field their strongest team. So it's very disappointing.
Working and things like that.
Yeah, it's very disappointing because Harps actually have a huge chance in this game. They've got Sean Paddy Gearns at centre half and Cuba Beban in goals. 2 top players that would get into any junior team in Ireland. And okay, Pike Rovers are 3rd in the Limerick District League. But, with Sean Paddy in the form he's in, the captain of Munster, he's going to represent Ireland at the end of the year. I think BT Harps have a chance here.
Yeah, so that one is 3:30. Wish them the very best luck. Gary, it's been an education talking to you today. You've great knowledge in the NT&DL. We're sure to have you on again, but thanks for coming in here and having a chat with us.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thank you.
Oh, great stuff there from Gary Culbert, looking ahead and talking on what's going on in the world of soccer and also what's going on more specifically in the world of the NT&DL and that title race. Sunday week is a time to save in your calendar for that finale between Shinrone and BT Harps, but also taking place over the course of the weekend. Some other bits to just give recognition to. The Tipperary Celtic Challenge teams are both in action. Tipperary Gold and Tipperary Blue in quarter-final action. That's the minor development kind of championship. So brilliant stuff to have 2 Tipperary teams in the latter stages, and we wish them the very best of luck. Tipperary Gold, I believe, are playing Kilkenny, and Tipperary Blue are playing Wexford, and both those games on over the course of Saturday and Sunday. Also taking place over the weekend, Munster are back in action. 7:45 throw-in on Saturday evening in the Dexcom Stadium against Connacht in the URC. We have Tipperary's Brian Gleeson on the bench. We have Tipperary's Diarmuid Byrne starting in the front row, and that's a big game for both sides there in the race for the Champions Cup places and the URC playoffs as well. Dorothy Wall in action for Ireland. The feathered native starts for Ireland against Wales up in Belfast in the Women's Six Nations. That game is on at 6:30 on Saturday evening, and plenty more happening as well. If I have forgotten something, I do apologise. No notes in front of me at the minute, so this is just going off the top of my head. But let's have a quick word now with our weekly greyhound racing update, and we have a new jingle to play for that too.
Tip FM's Greyhound News Update with Greyhound Racing Ireland. Discover how we can support your club, school or charity with engaging, hassle-free fundraising nights, working with you every step of the way to make your event a success.
Clonmel Greyhound Track is the place to be tonight as the second round of the €20,000 to the winner National Produce takes centre stage. The event, of course, with a fantastic history down through the years, got off to a flying start last Friday night with a number of sensational performances, and the star of the show was the Graham Holland trained Swords Diamond, who went quickest on the night when delivering a magnificent 28-14 winning performance. Swords Diamond runs from trap number 4 winner in the opening heat in the second round, and a reproduction of its opening round performance would be more than good enough to complete a hat-trick of straight successes. It was a previous winner around Shelburne Park. It's only a September puppy, and he's one of the most exciting young greyhounds in the country at this stage. Elsewhere in the lineup, you have the likes of J.K. Fly, who runs from trap number 1 for trainer Paul Hennessy. That finished second in the opening round. Of course, that was a recent finalist in the Conor Kirby Memorial Competition in Limerick. And also trap number 3, Cushy Flight Plan for Tipperary trainer Michael O'Donovan, a 28-48 winner in the opening round. In the second heat, keep an eye on trap number 4, Kenya Watt, who caught my eye in defeat last time, has got lovely early pace and not without a chance at a likely good price for Tipperary trainer David Flanagan. Favero Warrior will start as one of the leading fancies for Ken Bustede in Cork, a 28-42 winner in the opening round. On to the third heat, keep an eye on trap number 4 here, Berlin Trilogy, who went into my notebook in the opening round, trained in Tipperary by Michael O'Donovan. It was third, only beaten a couple of lengths in 28-72, but you would imagine it'll improve plenty for that comeback outing, and certainly not without a chance. While in the fourth and final heat in the second round, Shotgun Days, running from trap number 4 here for champion trainer Graham Holland, was a 28-61 winner last Friday night, and it's another one that should improve for that run. Of course, it was the winner of the IGOBF National Puppy Competition at Shelburne Park at the back end of the year. Switching our attentions on to Thurles Greyhound Stadium, their first of the night will get underway at 7:02 on Saturday night, and it's featuring the 2 semi-finals of the €3,000 to the winner, Thurles Track Champion Bitch Stake. In the opening semi-final, keep an eye on trap number 6 here, Glengar Blitz for Kappa White trainer Pat Buckley, 29-23. Winner last time, should be in the premises. Also, of course, Pat Buckley is represented with Dearjet Matilda, who runs from trap number 3. So it really does look all about Pat Buckley in the opening heat. And he has another really strong hand in the second heat, because trap number 1, Sing Along Cherry, was a 28-96 winner last week, and going on that performance should take the world of beating. Elsewhere in the lineup, trap number 4 is not without a chance. That's Droopy's Bundle for Kildare trainer Robert Gleeson. While on the outside of the track, Magical Hope should be also in the frame for Claude Jordan trainer Patrick Guilfoyle. So that really is a fantastic competition there at the semi-final stage in Thurles Greyhound Stadium on Saturday night. Back to Clonmel Greyhound Stadium on Sunday night. Their first, of course, will be due off there at the usual Sunday night start time of 6:11, and it's featuring the opening round of the Tipperary Goba A2-A3 stake with €1,800 to the winner. It looks like it's going to be a good competition over the course of the next couple of weeks, with some nice sorts, of course, in action there in that event. So we'll certainly be following that over the next few weeks. Mr. Miles is one to watch in the competition for the Clonmel 5 Syndicate in the care of Ross Miles. That has leading claims there in heat number 3, but possibly the one they all have to beat is the well-drawn trap number 1, Minor Mac for Mary O'Connor. That just gets the nod there. Elsewhere on Sunday night in Clonmel, race number 10 is an A4 contest. A couple of greyhounds here going up in grade, but not trap number 4, Slaney-side Badge, who was a winner last time for the Inform kennel of Derek Keogh, and that could well bounce out in front there and make all the running. Just going back to last week, we have to congratulate new-in trainer Owen McKenna, who enjoyed big race success at Shelburne Park. Mydra's Opinion delivering a powerful late run to win for Maura Costigan and the new-in trainer, the McKenna family, of course. Owen McKenna there, of course, no stranger to big race success down through the years in the world of greyhound racing. €15,000 first prize, just getting the better of Lemon Orla, recent winner of the Easter Cup there, in a very, very exciting finish. Also this weekend down in Cork, we have the final of the €7,500 to the winner Pegasus Cup, and this can go the way of a Tipperary greyhound. Testra Destiny is selected to make it 4 wins on the bounce for Kevin Loughnane, well drawn in trap number 2, and with another quick start should be in control throughout. While down in the Kingdom Greyhound Stadium tonight, we have the €10,000 to the winner Lee Strand getting underway. Always a great competition down there in Kerry, and Kappa White trainer Pat Buckley has a very, very strong hand. We'll have more on that competition competition next week. And as I said, really looking forward to another great weekend of greyhound racing.
And many thanks, as always, to Barry Drake there for giving us a comprehensive rundown on what's happening in the world of greyhound racing, both here in Tipperary and further afield as well. Well, that's just about all we got time for this week's edition of Across the Line. A reminder, one live game on Tip FM over the course of the weekend. That's Tipperary against Sligo in the Tailteann Cup Round 1 encounter up in Markievicz Park. 1:45 on Sunday is the throw-in time, and our coverage here on Tip FM is with thanks, of course, to John Kennedy Motors, your main Toyota dealers in Clonmel. That's all for this week's edition of Across the Line. We've a very busy week of sport on Tip FM. Next week we'll be having live commentary on Wednesday evening of the Munster Under-20 final. Next Friday evening we'll have live coverage of the Munster Minor Hurling final. Then Saturday we'll have live coverage and commentary of the Munster Senior Camogie final, and then we'll have Tipperary against Clare as well in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. So we'll have a very busy week of sport in Tipperary next week, and we'll try and talk about as much of that as we can next Friday evening on Across the Line. But for this week's edition of Across the Line, it's bye for now.